Hello, I am Shamelle Jordan, and welcome to another episode of Genealogy Quick Start. We have, I know I say this all the time, but these quick starts are pretty cool. We have Jim Beidler today, who Michael's not here, but he did create this quick start. Unfortunately, fortunately for his attendees, he is speaking, has a speaking engagement. But he's doing a great quick start called How Did They Meet? Have you asked your parents how they met? How about your grandparents? I had the luck of thinking about this because I was just in every genealogy class I could be in. And they suggested figure this out. And I asked my grandmother, and she told me it was about the picking bus. So if Jim allows me to infringe on his quick start, I will share that story. Also, we have a very special guest. This woman is all about genealogy education. She contacted me. She was looking all over the country for someone to provide education for the Oregon group that she'll tell us a little bit about. But Janice Sellers is here with us today to talk about news to NARA, not your standard court case. When I met the country genealogist down in Alabama, he said one of the most underused record collections are court records. And Janice Sellers is going to show us today how accessible they can be and what do you do once you find a court case. And this should be very useful to you because that's where the juicy stuff is, right? That's where the reality show of AKA of your ancestors' life will be played out in these wonderful court records. So let's bring on the first quick starter, the number one quick starter in the universe, columnist and editor, James M. Beidler. In the universe, Jim, in the universe. You get it in there?
At least in the quick start universe, for sure.
At least in the quick start universe. Jim, have you had any ancestors with any juicy court cases or any that you have researched that were pretty cool?
Well, one it's a real fragment. I don't know exactly how it was resolved, but I have an ancestor of mine named Matthias Weber, who was sued by his daughter-in-law, who is his son, also Matthias Weber Jr., died fairly young. And then Matthias Jr.'s widow sued her father-in-law, saying that he was hiding personal property and blah 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 blah. So but like I say, unfortunately, the petitions are lost. There's just index entries that
Man,
that tell a little bit of the story, and then you can kind of make good inferences from the fact that a few years later after this, Matthias Weber makes a deed tripartite with with the daughter-in-law's father that confirms this big tract of land, 451 acres, is going to go to his Matthias Weber's granddaughter. So the daughter of his deceased son and this daughter-in-law who was suing him. So I think it's not explicitly saying that this is the resolution to the case, but I think as a practical matter, that's the deal. So yeah.
So yeah, my fun court case was a church lockout. And I believe this had to do with during the time when Richard Allen started the first African-American denomination in the nation, the AME Church.
Yeah.
And they spent most of their time discussing whether one of the witnesses was, if he could testify. Is he Black? Is he Native? Like, what is he? Is he even allowed to testify? Like, how many pages do we need to read of this part of the? It was crazy, and they ended up just like saying, "Hey, you guys figure it out because we can't." Like,
Oh,
it was very interesting. All right.
yeah.
So yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. I wonder how many court cases there are based off of, the churches deciding to go with Richard Allen, which is pretty cool. They fought to, be a part of this denomination. So if you're out there, you know what to do. Please represent your genealogy group in the chat or where you are. We'd love to know where you are. And Jim, Michael and you created this quick start, which is pretty cool. You guys have some really cool attachments called How Did They Meet? So where did this come from and what are we talking about?
Well, as many of our quick starts are, this one comes from Michael and his genealogy tip of the day series, because they make excellent fodder for this because they are short, they are concise, and that helps us get rolling on this. And I kind of picked up on it right away, liking the idea, because there's some my parents I had quizzed about, some other relatives that I think I can figure out how they logically must have met, because mine are fairly boring, that they're all from the same area. So
I gotta ask my mom. I'm pretty sure I've asked her this question, but it wasn't like as salacious as grandmom, so I don't remember it.
well, why don't you go and tell us, so we're not left on the edge of a cliff, what the picking bus is.
Oh, the picking bus. So during the harvesting season in New Jersey, they had a bus that came from Eufaula, Alabama to New Jersey. And they came every year. And as it turns out, if you looked at, like, once I found out about the picking bus, I think the 1930 census come out. And I went and I looked at the 1930 census, and there were a lot of families that they were born in Alabama, like my grandmom. So they ended up staying. And so that's
Ah,
a migration path that I would have never thought about until I asked grandma, like, why are all, I knew one of the families came from Eufaula, but I didn't know that there were so many families. So asking that question, why on earth would you ever marry grandpa? I learned about the picking bus. So Jim, are you
yeah,
ready for your quick start? How did they meet?
absolutely.
All right, let's get started with how did they meet? And so step one is to select a couple. So are there specific couples that are better to select than others?
Well, I would say this is like a genealogy basics thing. Start with your parents and work your way back. First of all, of course, the iron rule of genealogy is always interview everybody while they're still alive, if possible. And it's more likely your parents are going to be alive than previous generations. Uh, and
So don't
so
start with the great great grandma.
no, no, no. If you come
Okay.
across that, that's fine. And you should. I think it's a worthwhile exercise. Uh, Even the further back you go, I'd say in general, the less of a chance that you're going to find out anything for sure. Uh, but you might be able to make some logical inferences. And you might get surprises, like your pick and
Yeah.
bus,
Yeah.
that adds some really cool detail to your family history. So
All right. So
so
we're looking for a recent one.
to start, to start.
And
Yep.
don't leave
Yep.
those aunties and uncles because they have fascinating stories too that are just fun and they're still family as well.
Well,
So,
yeah,
okay.
and again, they may have some bearing on your direct line
Ah,
ancestors. Yeah, I mean, it's not just to make genealogy more complicated that we do the whole family genealogy. It's really because reaching out to the collateral relatives, sometimes solves problems, and it always adds to the richness of things. So
I love that, the richness. So that's step one. Select a couple, more recent couple, someone that you can talk to or someone who knew the people. Step two would then be to locate the date, places of marriage. So this sounds like genealogy work. So where are the best
we
places to
we
the
we
crosshairs
we
location?
we we, we haven't done crosshairs of genealogy in quite a while. Time and place where they
Time
intersect.
and place.
Yeah.
So where are we getting
So
these marriage records from, Jim?
yeah. Well, I mean, today, basically every place has marriage license laws, and in in a fair number of cases, they are public records. In Pennsylvania, where I'm at, they're the only vital records that are 100% uh, public records. No blackout periods. You can go to the courthouse and get a marriage license that was filed yesterday, and the only thing that they redact out of it, I'm not sure if they still do this or not. They used to redact if there was a death certificate in the file from before any of Pennsylvania's death certificates, and this would have been of a previous marriage, uh,
Right.
of a death certificate of a spouse. Uh, but but no, and they start in Pennsylvania on the county level all across the state in 1885. So it's a really good record set. You shouldn't just stop there, and then when you go back before there are marriage licenses, then generally church records or church registers, congregational registers, and private pastoral registers. And
Right.
even even you should try to get both a civil and a religious one if it exists, because they may have different information. The religious one may have more information than
Mhm.
the civil one.
So I'm getting two things out of this. One, you have different levels of where you can get these marriage records. The newer ones, you want to start with the state and figure out when state was required. Before that, you'll look at a county for them or a city if it was an urban area. And
Mhm.
before that, then you probably want to look at church records.
Right.
And even if there are church and if there's both, get both civil and the
Absolutely.
religious. All right.
Absolutely. And then you also may have records like newspaper uh,
Mhm.
accounts of the marriage,
Yes.
because I have one. I'm going to call him a bugger of a minister in mid 1800s Berks County. This guy, Reverend Isaac Meese, he was pastor, as was typical of the time, like 6 Reformed churches all around Berks County. Every darn one of them has a gap in their records from when this bugger was the minister. He
He was having too much of the communion wine.
well, actually, that's the truth. Is he was reputed to have a drinking problem, um, and he was reputed to that. And so he either didn't keep them at all, or he kept them at a private register that hadn't survived. But he did faithfully report the marriages to a German language newspaper. Uh, and
Ah,
so I found record of some of my ancestors there being married by Isaac Nisi.
that is
So
really cool. You did mention
yeah,
throw in those newspapers in addition to the government records. You guys have so many
yeah.
records that I mean that I want to share with you. Step 3 is then to any clues in the marriage record. So take whatever you get and grab any clues. Step 4 is, I think that's the same thing. I must have missed a step. Step 5 is then to research the period for clues. So did you
Yeah.
want to speak to
Step
that?
four was interview relatives.
Oh, interview relatives.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do they know
And
anything about your ancestors' marriages in particular? Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
thank you for that.
Yeah.
Step 5 was then the research the time period for clues. So what might the time period tell you about why people were married?
Well, okay. I don't know about. Well, when you say why, you mean how did these two people get together?
Yeah.
Yeah. The time period. You'll see the proximity or lack of proximity that was necessary. Is it before cars or after cars? Things like that. Uh, you
And
know,
occupational.
Occupation. I was just going to say
Yeah.
occupational. I'm going to have a picture of one of my great grandmothers who actually never married, but
Oh, I love
alleged.
that. That's my favorite picture. We got to get to it.
Yeah,
Let's You ready?
allegedly
Let me
the
show the last step.
yeah.
Organize and write it up. Let's get to Jim's images. This
Well,
one's
we'll
Michael's,
start.
I guess.
Yeah, yeah, we'll start. Michael had a really great uh, little mini case study here. And first, he has from one of the Quincy newspapers in 1904 that H. Krog of Ontariouville, Illinois. He's now going to be at the Golden Creamery, and Golden is a little town near Quincy.
Okay.
So we see that Krog is, and this is early 1900s. So you're not commuting very far. He's Ontarioville near Chicago. So he's moving downstate
Mm-hmm.
to be the
Mm-hmm.
superintendent of this Golden Creamery.
All
So
right.
yeah. So
Yeah.
then we have the actual marriage record of Herman H. Krog, HH.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah, and it's
Both
giving his
sides of it, I guess. So this one, the woman's side
yes,
and the male side. So he was
right,
26, she was 21. Okay.
and he's marrying Catherine Sartorius, Miss Catherine Sartorius, and she's living in Golden, Illinois. So, that's an thing. Gives their parents' names and everything. And then the final slide is another newspaper from a different one. And here he's listed as of Golden and her of Quincy. So you get
Ah.
you get some different things here, some different town names. And Michael pointed out that these different places they're alleged to live, Colchester, Golden, Quincy, they're all a fair amount of distance. I mean,
Oh.
38 miles, 30 miles, 59 miles. Things that have you scratch your head a little bit until you find out all these towns are on the same rail line. So
Ah.
where railroads were king still in the early 1900s. So that's a good ringer on how they were getting around. Originally it's kind of you married someone within two farm circles, as it were. So,
Yes.
and then here it had been expanded to people on the rail lines.
And there are
Yeah.
tons of railroad maps online. Just Google, railroad maps so that you can see those lines during the time period. That one is brilliant. Michael's not even here and he's just being brilliant.
You
I
got it.
love that. And I love these too. Oh my gosh. These are your parents.
Yep, in the center is my mother, Mildred Heaster, and her husband, my dad, Richard Beidler, and a couple of his cousins were groomsmen. Uh, my mom's half sister, Lorraine, was her matron of honor. She was already married, and then a couple of relatives who are groomsmen, uh, and they met at a Burn Church picnic. Burn Church is the church I grew up in, that my mom grew up when I was for 8 generations in her line. And these Burn Church picnics were, social events over the summer, and they met there in the late 1940s. Yeah.
So your mom's the one with the shoulders out.
Oh, she is fourth from the left.
Oh, she's the fourth one. Who's the one with her shoulders out? She looks like she's upstaging the bride.
That's that's my Aunt Lorraine. Don't tell her she's upstaging anybody.
They both look great, but I'm like, wait a minute, who's the bride? So cute. I love this picture. I love this picture. I had to blow it up. I hope you don't mind.
Of course not. Of course not. Yeah, and then this is
Oh, you didn't tell
Florence.
us. Did you tell us how your parents met?
Yes,
At the church.
you were
Okay.
at the
I'm
church
sorry.
picnic. Yes, yeah, yeah. So here's Florence and Bill Moyer, and actually Bill Moyer. Well, Florence was a first cousin of my mother's mother. And so that's how they were in the family. And Bill came along from the ride. They lived in Reading. And what I know about them is that they were working factory working people. They never had a honeymoon. Although if you read their wedding notice in the paper, the reporter he told them as they were getting married, "Don't worry, I'll send you somewhere." And he and he put in the wedding announcement that they were honeymooning in Atlantic City. So I think they did eventually get to Atlantic City, but it was not then. And so this was 1920. They never had any kids. They stayed in Reading until their deaths. And the next one we have here are their 65th wedding
Aw.
anniversary. They lasted to 70 years, but by that point they were in a nursing home together and weren't in too good a shape. But here, still 65th when they were in their mid 80s. They were still together, and I could spend a whole. We don't have time. I could spend a whole quick start episode on Florence, or Flossie as we called her.
I think we've
Uh,
talked about Flossie.
we probably have because she was a character, as my dad would say.
Talking about characters.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, this is my mom's grandmother, Rosa DeHart Mockmer, and this photo is Atlantic City. She's the one who never married. She worked in a butcher shop in her early 20s, and apparently got pregnant by the son of the owner of the butcher shop. I guess he didn't. I guess he didn't keep all the meat in the locker. But
Oh my
so,
gosh, how dare you?
so, but so this is probably from the teens, and showing that
So
she
cool.
was still she was still playing the field. And all my mom could tell me is that this was a traveling salesman from Harrisburg named Garner, and he took her to Atlantic City.
Rosa knows how to hang and have some fun. She looks like she's having a lot of fun. Oh my gosh,
Definitely, definitely,
that is super
yeah,
fun. And yeah, so you at least your mom remembered his name, at
yeah,
least one part of
yeah,
his name. I love
yeah.
that,
I don't
Jim.
know. I don't know who, how that information came to her, because this would have been that photo would have been from when before she was born. So,
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, that's a super old photo, but it's gorgeous. Your mom was lucky to have it passed down to her. So, any last thoughts on how they met?
yeah. Well, I just kind of reviewing that you should be um, starting with the closest to you, interview anybody who's still living, and then kind of work it back generation by generation. If you have the some sort of marriage license or church record, analyze what's in there, and then also just see the residences of the two marital partners and how they may come together. I'm still searching. One of my fifth great grandfathers, Conrad Beidler, married to a Barbie no name. My working theory is that he became a miller. I bet a little bit of money, not the farm, but a little bit of money, that she was the miller's daughter that he apprenticed under. And
Okay.
so I've tried to find where Conrad's father's farm was, and then build out at least two courses to see who, were there any millers there, and did they have a daughter named Barbara?
So I figured out a commonality between my other grandmother and the man who would have been my grandfather, but they didn't marry. She married someone else. In that, my grandma she was a numbers runner, so she was good with numbers. And on the man that my grandfather, he had brothers who were math professors. So I think
Ah,
there was something about that they, like, when I learned about that, I was like, oh, that's kind of a thing that could connect them. But yeah, that's kind of interesting. So
huh?
let's run through the steps. I think you kind of ran through them, but let's go through them
Yeah.
again. Maybe I have them right. Yep, I have step 4. How did they meet? So you want to select a couple. You want to locate the date and place of the marriage, those good old crosshairs. And you can put those forearms up, cross those forearms if you need some power to help you get there. Step 3, any clues from the marriage records, anything that can help you to give you information on how they met. Step 4, you want to interview relatives, someone who might know the story, someone who might have been there. Step 5 is to research the time period for clues. Was there some migration into town? Was there a railroad like Michael's ancestors? And step 6 is to organize that information and write it up for future generations. I met a 12-year-old genealogist, and oh my gosh, precious. And now I think even harder about how do we preserve stuff and make sure that things are available to them. Thank you, Jim. I really appreciate this quick
Hey,
start. Take care. All right, let's get ready for the second quick start. I can't wait to learn about court records. Hold on a second. All right. I am so excited to have Janice here. I don't know why I didn't have Janice here like a long time ago, because she is like a really wonderful genealogist. But I just figured now is the time. So let me bring out Janice M. Sellers. Hello, Janice.
Hello, Shamelle. I'm so happy to be here.
Yay! So I don't know if I prepared you for this, but I always ask all of our special guests to share your 1 minute genealogy story. How did you get started? And
I got
when did you know you were hooked?
well, I got started when I was really little because my mother and my grandmother used to talk about family members all the time. So I grew up knowing everybody's birthdays and wedding anniversaries, and I knew all their names. And I got hooked when I was 13 because we had to do a 4-generation chart back to my great great grandparents in school. And
Yeah,
I still have that piece of paper.
that is so cool. That is so cool. You did it in like 29 seconds, maybe 18. I don't know. So Janice, good, because that gives us more time to talk about this your quick start, which I am so excited to hear. Um, your quick start is called first, represent your Oregon group. So which group is it that you facilitate?
Well, the one you're probably thinking of is that I'm the coordinator for the Genealogical Forum of Oregon African American Special Interest Group, which is a mouthful, so we call it GFOAASIG.
GFOAAC, yay!
And I've been coordinating that for 7 years now.
7 years. And I think we might have met a few years, like right at the beginning of like maybe, yeah, I'm not going to date us. All right, Janice, thank you so much. Let's get started with your quick start, which is news to NARA, not your standard court case. So give us a little like teaser of what this quick start is all about in its essence.
Well, I am always looking for information about family members. If I get access to a database, then I'll put people's names in. And I had access to a bunch of ProQuest newspapers, including ones in Georgia. And so I put in the name of my cousin's great great grandfather just because he was in Georgia, and found out he was in a court case where he sued Standard Oil. And what's really amazing about it is that he and his wife were born into slavery. They never learned to read and write, yet here they are suing a major national corporation. I had to follow that story.
Yay! I love it. So let us get into this. And really, this quick start is something that anyone could use for any court case. So let's get started with news to NARA, not your standard court case. So you have step one is to start with newspapers. Like we find so many cool things in newspapers and salacious news like court cases and stuff. This is what newspapers look to print. So did you so this which where did you find this article?
I found this one in one of the Columbus, Georgia newspapers. So I was just randomly putting his name in. I didn't know what I'd find, but I hit the jackpot, and I had to follow it. So
so tell us, what did it say in the paper? Was it a long thing or was it like 2 lines?
Oh, no. This was a long thing. It was the front page of the newspaper. It went all the way down the whole column, rolled around to a second column. There was so much detail in this. It's very sad, but it's amazing what you can find about your relatives in the newspaper. In the Bay Area, they used to call me the newspaper queen because I was teaching everybody to use newspapers well before Lisa Louise Cook.
So what was this case about? This case?
This case was that the family claimed that they had been sold the incorrect type of oil, so that when they went to light it, instead of being the kind that would have just burned in the lantern, it blew up. And So two of Henry's daughters were injured. His wife was injured. 3 of his grandchildren were injured and actually ended up dying. So it's very sad.
Oh man.
But nobody
Oh
in the family
man.
knew about this at all. So I was reading all the details going, oh my goodness, how did nobody ever talk about this? And then it said it was a court case. So I had okay, which court? I want records. I want those records.
All right, so you had this article. We move on to step 2, which is to research the history of the event. So what type of sources did you go to? First, I want to say newspapers, like the key ones, newspapers.com subscription, Genealogy Bank subscription, newspaper archive subscription. Go into your local library. You can get newspapers there as well. So step 2 is to research the history of the event. Where did you look to find history?
Well, the first article I found said that the court case was filed in Muskogee Superior Court in Muskogee County, Georgia. So I started with Muskogee Superior Court. I called them up and said, hi, I read this. I want copies.
Oh, okay. So you're on to like the court part. What about, was there any like historical things like that you looked up to find out more details before you got to the court records?
I looked up information about the family members.
Okay.
What was really striking to me is, I mentioned, Henry and his wife were born enslaved.
Right.
And even as late as 1920, and as far as I know, for the rest of their lives, they did not learn how to read and write.
Okay.
I could not, I'm getting background on them. How are they managing to sue Standard Oil?
Okay.
So I had that context for them that this must have been a pretty significant case if they were able to bring this lawsuit.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So look up and see if there's anything like, I had an article on a court case and I looked up because it was so historical. There were scholars who wrote about this incident. So you could look at places like JSTOR for anything scholarly, and any kind of books that you could look at. All right, step 3.
I did research information about Standard Oil at the time.
Okay, you looked up Standard Oil, the history
their antitrust suit that broke it up into all those little ones. But I found the jurisdiction because it was in the article.
Okay.
So I contacted Muskogee Superior Court. They couldn't find very much.
Okay.
The most important thing that they found was that it had not actually been handled in Muskogee Superior Court. Standard Oil had requested it be bumped up to the district court. And that request was granted. So even though Muskogee couldn't find very much, I needed to find a new jurisdiction and find those records.
So it was really you just contacted the jurisdiction and they led you to the next jurisdiction because they didn't really have anything. Okay. Okay. So be nice, right? And when
be nice, be polite, and say, can you find anything anywhere? Oh, please, can you look again? And
this is the one way that you be really polite. I was at a repository this week and I see why they are running away from genealogists.
We want everything.
No, TMI. They don't need to hear the whole reason why you need this court case. Be very professional and just be specific about the court case. You don't have to tell the whole business and the whole story because this is a great story. But those people are working and they're doing other stuff.
They don't care.
Every time they see your name or hear your voice, they're like, I don't have time for this. Be professional.
I did not do that to them. I just stuck to, is there another place you could look to see if you have any of the records from that period?
Just about the record. I need that record, not the history and the details and why you need it. All right, just the facts, ma'am. All right, so you had a jurisdictional change, and the only way you did that is because you talked to people. Step 4 is to locate the court record. So now that you knew it was in the district court, how did you get asked? What is a district court, and how did you get access to them?
Well, district courts are for things that cover not just a local area. Sometimes it's for companies that are have representation in additional areas. So the court papers that they did find told me which court it went to. And so then I started looking up who had those records.
Okay. And so who had the records?
They were actually filed with the National Archives branch. It's called the Atlanta branch, but technically it's in Morrow. And so then I contacted them through the very, very helpful National Archives website, because every single branch has an email address. You can write to us and ask us to help you with your research. So I said, do you have any of these records? And they did.
When you said Morrow, it just took me back, because they have the best setup. They have the National Archives there, right next to, like, I could walk on my hands, like do a headstand to get to the state archives, which is right there, right next to it. So I'm sorry if I kind of like look like I have that blank stare, because it's been a while since I've been there. I love it. All right. So the National Archives had records there, and you're going to show us some stuff. Mm-hmm. Step 4 is you located the court records, and step 5, where did you find you found additional records?
Well, I found additional newspaper articles as I continued to pursue the story.
Right.
So what I found, big announcement, and got carried over to multiple papers, that they had settled with Standard Oil.
Oh, let's show the record. I think you have documents. Let's show your documents.
Well, let's see those documents.
Let's go to the documents. Okay, so this is they sued, and so these are the people.
This is part of my background research, finding out about Henry in America. That's his wife's name. So they're both born in Georgia into enslavement.
Okay, they were babies. They were baby enslaved.
They were little babies.
Yeah.
Now, that little red circle is from the 1920 census, and that says neither one of them can read or write.
Okay.
And that's 3 years after they filed this lawsuit. This was the front page of the Columbus Daily Inquirer, $47,500 lawsuit against Standard Oil.
Wow.
And this went all the way down the whole page, rolled around to a second column. This was big news in Columbus.
Killed 3. Yeah, that's big
3 of
news.
Henry's grandchildren.
Wow.
And you can see the newspaper was a little beat up for the time period, so I ended up transcribing the entire article. And one of the things that I did find in the newspaper articles, it told me who their lawyer was, Judge J.L. Willis.
Okay.
And so they charged Standard Oil with gross negligence for selling the wrong kind of oil that exploded.
Oh my gosh. I know they probably lost a lot of sales while this court case was going on.
And then one whole section of that newspaper article was just about the little children that were killed by the explosion.
3 of his grandchildren are just gone.
That could easily be the reason the family did not carry the story down.
Oh,
because it was a horrible tragedy for the family. Because when I told my cousin this, she had never heard anything about it.
So let's say their names. Is that
Mondes Crawford?
Mondes Crawford.
She was one of the granddaughters.
Henry
Small and Mary Crawford.
And Mary Crawford. Wow.
We need to remember their names. They cannot be forgotten.
Yep, add them to the tree. This article helps to add them to the tree, because how else might you have known them? Oh, what's this?
Now, this is the original court filing in Muskogee County Superior Court.
Okay.
Where it says that we're moving this to district court because Standard Oil requested that, and their request has been granted.
This is what they sent to you when you contacted them?
This is what Muskogee Superior Court was able to find.
Okay. Did it take a long time when you was on the phone? Were they like bouncing you around to different people?
They didn't bounce me around to different people. They just said, we'll call you back if we find something.
Okay.
And
Okay.
it took them a while, but they did find something, so I'm very appreciative of that.
And what's this telling us?
I did the same thing with the court case information that I did with the newspaper articles. I transcribed everything to make sure that I got every word and understood what was happening. So one of the things, Thoy was Henry's son. He was a minor. He could not sue on his own. So I learned the term next friend because Henry officially filed the suit on his behalf because he was too young to do it himself.
Okay. Okay.
And so they say that they have moved it to the district court for the Northern District of Georgia.
Okay. And district court always generally means federal.
It's not always federal, but most of the time it is.
Most of the time it's federal. And transcriptions are so huge. Like, I'm glad that you are bringing
They are
that home.
so important because you want to make sure if you transcribe it and type it or write it all out, it's going to be in your brain better. You'll get that information and really get it into your head.
And it helps with analysis.
It
and
does.
It helps when you come back 10 years later and you're like, what does this document say?
Wait, I can't read that anymore. Oh, but I can read the typing where I transcribed it. And it also helps for those people who aren't as good at reading these tiny little letters.
Yes.
Then I found announcements in several papers. This one's the Columbus Ledger. So it did not stay very long. 2 months they settled this. It started off at $47,500 and went down to $6,900.
Wow.
But the newspapers also reported that the check had been delivered to the lawyer. Because you always wonder when you hear these cases, did they ever get the money?
Yeah.
According to the newspaper, the lawyer actually had the check already.
I wonder if he took a third or a half. I wonder how much he took.
I'm working on that.
Oh, okay.
I have not. This is not finished. There is more to learn.
All right.
So this is telling it. It started off as $47,500. A check for $6,900 was turned over to the attorney for the plaintiff.
Okay. Yeah.
And then they also went into detail. It's interesting. I don't know how much of this is simply because it's early 20th century and they're not really worrying about the details, or how much of it might be because this is a poor black family in the South. They kept names wrong. They got relationships wrong.
Oh.
Amazingly enough, the thing they got consistently right was the dollar amounts.
Yeah, because that's like right on point there.
But see, like here, they call Harriet Malone the grandmother. No, Harriet was one of Henry's daughters.
Oh, so you got to check this out. Yes.
Yeah. And like I said, I don't know how much of it, were they careless like this in cases having to do with whites? I don't know.
Okay.
Other information to be researched.
Because you'd be so excited, like, oh, this is great. This is what they say. But you have to check everything. Oh, my gosh, that's awful.
It's a very, very sad story. And then this came from the National Archives branch in Morrow. This is where they said that it is settled between parties.
Okay, so this is the settlement.
This one is actually nicely typed up, so we can read this later without a lot of effort. But
this microfilm or loose papers?
I still transcribed it again so I could get the details wired into my head.
Well, the cool thing, like a lot of people might say, oh my God, Why are you transcribing this? And part of the reason is it makes it searchable. Like ORC is not available for everything, but if you search your computer for these names, this document will come up,
Well, and also
right?
the active nature of typing it yourself means you remember it better.
Yes, yes, yes.
But yeah,
Definitely get
you can
that.
search it when you've typed it into a Word document.
And you know, since this is so easy, I don't even type, I voice type. I read it into Google or Word. You do voice typing and you could fix it however you want.
That's
Yeah,
true.
I love this. I love how you bring home
I was
transcribing.
trained as a touch typist, so I could still type 100 words a minute. It works.
Woo! Look at you, 100 words a minute. I'm gonna hire you.
So there we go, settled between parties.
Okay. So, oh my gosh, is that the last slide? Oh, here we go.
Well, that's right, because one of the things that I'm still wondering about in this case, okay, these are poor, illiterate blacks living in a rural part of Muskogee County. How did this lawyer end up filing a lawsuit for them? I don't know. I'm still researching him. He was a lawyer and a judge. He took this case, but I don't know did he know them? Did he help other black families in the area?
Yeah, he could have been a lawyer.
Learn about this case.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm still looking.
I wonder what changed in the life of the black family after they received this money, you know?
But they received the money, and that's a really high cost.
Yeah.
Children died.
Yeah.
That money is never going to replace them.
Absolutely never. Absolutely never.
But I'm glad I found the case because now we have their names. We're not.
So all of these files that so the National Archives, all of them, you were able to contact them and they sent the copies of it.
They were incredibly helpful. Found it right away, sent me the PDFs. Then, oh, I sent you the PDFs. I need to charge you for those.
Oh, woo woo.
So good to work with.
Well, Morrow, I can definitely attest to how incredibly nice they are there. Like, absolutely. It's an incredible experience every time I've gone there. So, big shout out to the National Archives in Atlanta and in Morrow. Thank you for your service for getting these court records. Any other tips? Like, it felt like with these, it was kind of reach out to boots on the ground, contact the proper court, and also I said do not TMI, do not go around telling. Think about professors and think about, you know, professional people who are doing deed research. They're not in there telling all their business about why they're in there. It was so painful to hear this lady doing that. Don't do it. So with court records, it seems like you're saying transcribe everything that you get. Make sure that you're looking at the right, you know, level of court. Any other tips that you want to give?
Well, the tip that started me off on this in the first place was look for your family names everywhere. I'm truly obsessive. I want to find everything about my family I can. If I had not just happened to say, wait, this is a Georgia newspaper, let me put in Henry's name, I never would have found it because the family had never heard of this. Look for your family everywhere you can. Find out those details. Find all those names that have been forgotten so we can remember them now.
So we can remember their names. I love that. Let's go through the steps for news to NARA, not your standard court case. Step 1, start with an article and newspaper article. Step 2, research the history of that event that you find. Step 3, determine the jurisdiction. And for Janice, it changed. Step 4, locate the court records. Step 5, locate any additional records. Janice, do you have any other additional tips or records that you might have collected that you did not get a chance to share here?
Not ones that I've collected, but the ones I'm still pursuing. Every single law firm that had anything to do with this case. Because one of the things I discovered, this happened right before Standard Oil was broken up. No records seem to exist on the Standard Oil side anymore. So I have to talk to a bunch of lawyers now.
So you're calling law firms directly about the case? Okay.
Some of the law firms still exist. And
Okay.
hi, there was this case in this year. Can you please look to see if any documents still exist?
Okay.
Because
No one's giving you any privacy things like this is
No.
our private stuff?
And the worst they can do is say no. If you don't ask, the answer is automatically no because you didn't try to get it.
I love that. And you weren't a pain in the neck telling all the business.
No, I was very polite and just focused on what I was asking about.
Janice, thank you so much for this. Let's bring back Jim Beidler to say thank you so much for watching, and get out there and find out how they got married. And hopefully they didn't end up in court, but somebody did.
Sometimes
We now
they
have
do.
a quick start to help you with that. Thank you so much.
Thank
I
you.
have music. Thank you, Janice.